What's up, everybody? Chaz, Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. I'm your host. Today, I have a special guest named Steve Bray, the King. Maybe even as we were talking about some of these stages, Steve knows the secret behind where I found these stages. But I'm so excited for you to be here, Steve. A true king, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here, good sir.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us what kind of business that you have. Let's start there because you have a big story and a lot to be able to share value, and so I want to be able to get to it.
So, basically, as it stands today, I started in temp power back. I was a field electrician back in 1975 when I started in the field, and actually I bought the company in 1984, and we kind of did the same thing, temporary power for construction sites. We would just supply simple poles and wire and equipment and cords and boxes and things like that to build a home or a commercial site. And after I bought the company in 84, I started a generator company, and then we started a utility. So we break it down into three different divisions. We've got construction services. We do that in Arizona, Nevada, California, and Texas. And then we have a generator company that does generators for anything you can imagine. We own most of them. In our fleet, we cover the United States, disasters, electrical outages, anything you can imagine, we've done it. So if you said, what about a backyard concert, or what about, and I had a division where we did entertainment. We did 151 dates of the Rolling Stones with generators around the country and the world. Eventually we were all over the world with that. I actually ended up selling that division in 91. But so that rental, we take care of people with rental, whatever they need. And then the third division is we service and maintain mission critical generators for hospital data centers, cell sites, you name it. We cover repairs and maintenance. So in that sense, we're like the copier man. They call us up and they go, "Hey, our copier's not working," and we fix it, but we do that with generators and big generators.
Yeah. These are not just things where they can't get something printed. This is like, we have 400 people in beds that might die. We need you.
Yep. Yeah. So we take care of that. It's a very proactive business, cycling through. We do work for Amazon, Walmart, anybody that you can, we've got a robust customer list.
Yeah. Love that. Well, you've got a huge resume. You didn't even, I loved how you just like slightly like rolled in there that you were doing work for the Rolling Stones, or it just, I love the rap sheet, for lack of better terms. You have a lot of success. I want to know, for a guy like you that just seems so maybe intense. When I first talked with you just a little bit ago, you're like, yeah, I like hanging out with crazy people because they're like me, basically, So for a guy like you, same as me, what like pushes you? What's your why? Why are you still at it? You're talking about, I sold this company in 91. We did this, like, but you're just as excited about business and life today. It seems like what's in it?
Yeah. Well, originally, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a Christian, and I received a very, really realistic calling in 1984. So prior to that, I wanted to be a pastor. I was just kind of a field electrician and waiting sort of to get, knighted as a pastor by a pastor. And I had this encounter where I realized my life is to build value into, people, and, make a profit. And then we move a lot of that money into, world mission type of work through a foundation I founded in 2005 called the Giving University. And we basically teach people about generosity. So it's all one big ball of, enjoying work. And I always love to tell the friends that I know that are pastors, I drive into work every day and thank God I'm not a pastor. And I enjoy and I love my job.
Yeah.
And so it's, that's where the energy comes from, because I feel like I'm doing what I was made to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That moment, I mean, I think that there's a lot of business owners that are like in the same seat as you. They're like, okay, like I want to go after this thing, this hill, this challenge, this business. We put the thing in front of us. But oftentimes we don't necessarily feel like this is what I was made to do. What's the difference for you? How did you get there? What's the difference, and how did you get there? One of just like, I'm just doing this because I didn't want to do the pastor thing, versus like, no, I was made to do this business. And was there like a moment there?
Yeah, there really was, and that was a moment of, where what I call the moment of calling, which was, I thought the best thing I could do was to be a pastor. That's what I
Right.
thought.
Yeah.
So I thought, in '84, there's two things you could do that were important as a Christian, was be a pastor or be a missionary. So I,
Right.
picked pastor, and one of my most amazing mentors was John Wimber. John, I was in his course to go plant a church, and I'm first quarter in the church, and he goes, I want you to go pray about what geographic location you're going to go to. And so I went home, dear Jesus, where do you want me to plant the church? And I got this very clear, I don't want you to plant a church. I'm going to bless you in business so you can be a blessing in the kingdom.
Yeah.
So, and Wimber was all about, kingdom. So that was that moment. Okay. And, I have, I know that you're going to, ask the question at some point about what was your, what bad decision did you make?
Right.
I didn't value the business that I actually had. So there was a period of time in the, in the late '90s where I hated, the power business, and, the
Right.
oil and iron and dirt and generators and construction guys and, employees everywhere, and the service aspect of it,
Right.
just all those difficulties. I hated it. And because everyone was creating these, you don't have to make profit, internet success, all of these things. And I thought, I missed it. What did I, I
Right.
was focused on this thing. And that all blew up, the dot bomb blew up. And
Right.
I was out raising money, and I was talking to a VC guy, and he bought 28% of my company at that time in 2001. And I said, why did you invest in this company? He goes, oh, we hate internet businesses, and we
Yeah.
want bricks and mortar, and we want business,
Yeah.
people that are doing things that have long lasting,
Yeah.
effect on
Power's not
people.
going anywhere.
And you know what? And then I had this epiphany where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting in the catbird seat with power. We can do anything with power, and it's always, necessary. And, we've, I've operated from that standpoint ever since. And part of the energy is that I love, growth. And so we grew from 1984 through to 2006 at a 32% compounded growth rate.
Wow.
And yeah, which is like, sometimes I think, if I was counseling a guy, 27, I'd say, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, you were hiring people left and right, all kinds of challenges. I can only imagine that was just the stickiest 2 decades of your life.
starting things, and all of that. So, but I mean, what a blast. We've had, and, we're still having a blast. I have a lot of great people that work for me. and they're all intricately involved, in the business. So it's been, it's been a lot of fun. So that, I think that answers, you still have energy and passion for it, because you don't have to, everyone has these, I want to sell my company and I want to, move on to the next thing. Well, what's the next thing? You gonna golf? What it's like, that would be a sentence of death to me. And my wife and I would probably be divorced if
you need to go do something more extreme.
So,
which is, it's funny. We likened over a quick big game hunting few minutes before we hit the record button, but it's things like that. When you said about your wife, I think about the moments where, even though Julie, my wife, because I'm younger, or I have younger kids, and so, me being gone for 2-week elk hunt isn't necessarily the most practical thing when we've got 4 under the age of 9,
right.
But at the same time, she's like, get out of here, please. Like, go do the extreme thing, because that's what gives you energy, which is exactly what you're talking about. Right. Even after all the success and you've, for all intents and purposes, hit the mountaintop, it's like, no. It's just a false top. I'm not even there yet,
Right. Exactly. It is. And, even like with hunting, I always, talk about the fact that it's actually not, getting the elk or the antelope or whatever you're hunting. It's actually the whole process that you're going through. And those are the stories you're talking about.
Right.
One of my best hunts was, I got totally skunked for 7 days. I rode 64 hours on horseback. And as I'm clicking through, my ride and my time, it was all these stories that we were talking about and all these experiences and all this stuff that was happening. So it was really, really amazing.
Yeah. I think that there's a uniqueness of the correlation between, especially elk hunting, just because you can go a long time without seeing one. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're all there.
Right. Yeah.
You get one opportunity, one shot type of thing. Or maybe you don't, and you don't get any opportunity and you go home and with tag soup. But the reality of it there is that if that was the only thing you were going for, to your point, you missed it.
Yeah.
You missed it.
And then
the camaraderie, the guys, everything.
Right. Exactly. So and to be honest with you, that's a lot about business. I mean, there's every once in a while you hit a home run. Very rarely do you get a grand slam, but you've got to base your baseball on hits and on bases, steals, all those kinds of things. That's how you get points. Not grand slamming it.
Exactly. It was funny. Just keep this vein here for a second on hunting. My 9-year-old daughter, she's learning how to pull back a bow, and she's shooting a little kid's bow. And we were talking about practicing and really the point of even her practicing right now, because it's not like it has any weight on it. It's just she's learning how to hold the bow, to balance it, to pull it back, to get the feel of it every single time, do the same thing every time, get the motions. And so I was explaining to her what the purpose of, even at this age, even though she can't shoot an animal with this bow, like there's no, like, this is not going to do anything. Right. She can't go hunting. But it's the mechanics, it's the little things that she's learning, because later when she does have an opportunity, even at my stage, it's like I practice over and over and over and over and over. So that way, when I am in the moment, when I do have that one very quick opportunity, I didn't like self-sabotage. And so correlating that to business, it's like, okay, so all these, hits and steals and runs along the way are what add up to, over the course of time, you can look back and go, well, I wasn't really focused on, just killing the animal every time. I was the mechanics, which put me in the right position at that time so that I could kill the animal. But there was lots of other times where I didn't get the opportunity. Right.
Right. Yep. That's really good.
What do you think?
For the golfers, Tiger Woods hits 1,000 golf balls a day.
Exactly. Yeah. Golf isn't bad. It's just bad for me and you. What do you think? Let's transition here. You kind of told a little bit of a story there around growing multiple divisions, buying the company. Tell us just real quick of a good decision that you made in those maybe early years. when it was really chaotic and you were growing that maybe led to the growth or that helped you manage the growth?
Yeah. So if every once in a while somebody will say, well, what two qualities propelled you? One is I'm
Yeah.
extremely fiercely curious.
Love that.
So I
Define
just
that for me. What does that mean?
well, you've got this power platform. What else could we do with that? And then dig into that. You've got all these ancillary ideas and products and things like that. Go chase after those and figure out how you can make those integrated into the company, or, dump the idea and, keep moving.
Right.
Curiosity allows us to learn and grow. And so I am, I'm like fiercely curious, partially because when I stepped into business, when that moment happened where, I'm getting called into away from being a pastor and into business, I was like, me, I barely graduated from high school. Literally,
Yeah.
I graduated in January because they wanted me out, and I had to come back to my small town to walk with and get my degree. But I didn't have any background in business, finance, banking, all those things. I had to learn every single thing.
Yeah.
I had to plod through that. That curiosity is what helped me. The other thing that allowed me to, grow and to develop the company as it is today is I'm a fierce delegator. I
Mm.
love to delegate. I like to see other people do the work, that I know I can do, but I'd like to see them do it themselves, and that allows them, to have a greater role in the company. But it also allows
Yeah.
us to grow and expand. So you don't grow at 32% compounded rate if you know where everything is.
Exactly.
Impossible.
Yeah, it is. It's actually lack of control, but that sounds bad. Like, wait a second, I'm out of control. I don't know where everything is. What would you say to that listener who's thinking those thoughts right now?
Well, if you're talking to a banker or an auditor, and they go, "You're out of control," you want to,
Yeah,
you know,
button it up a little bit.
get you might want to talk them down from that observation. But right now, I have 300 or 400 trucks on the road all over the country. Am I in control of that? Well,
Right.
I've got really good people that are watching, monitoring, fixing, repairing, and things like that. Can't possibly have my fingerprints on all that stuff. You have to let go in order
Yeah,
to operate and build your organization. So control is a tricky word
it
because
is.
I feel like we have a really good control on our business,
That's right.
um, and but it's not all about me.
Yeah, you said we have control.
We.
It's not that control doesn't exist because control still has to exist in order for there to be
Yep.
order. In order for there to
Yep.
be success, you have to have order. Okay,
Yep.
so we're back 89, 90, and you're growing at 32% compounding growth, which means you're hiring. I mean, you're hiring whole teams at
Yeah.
once, and all across the country. This is not just in one singular office.
Well, at that in 91, we were pretty much local in Southern California because we were growing
Okay,
the construction services business, and it wasn't until later on, like mid 90s, we started to expand into other states, and
sure,
partially, we went to Las Vegas because we were in, we could feel the recession coming, and we knew that we had the ability to go to that state and do the work that was there. So a lot of the adversity caused us to push out,
yeah,
move out to other geographic locations that were,
yeah,
growing green grass. And so, the biggest migratory, animal in the world, mows grass. They have the biggest, it's bison, and they,
Yeah.
the African bison, and they just keep chewing and moving and
Yeah.
keep going. And that's what we did.
Hey, kings and queens, Chaz, Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Yeah, I love that. Just keep chewing, keep going. I guess my kind of underneath question for that would be, okay, so you're delegating, you're giving things away, you're controlling, but not putting your fingerprint on everything. What were you saying to yourself at that moment? Because I could see or hear some of the listeners saying, well, I'd be super overwhelmed, or there'd be just a lot going on, or I'd come home and I wouldn't be able to sleep, or all of these things that could be happening inside of a growth, tornado like that. What was happening inside of your mind at that time? What were you telling yourself?
Look, we can't help wiring, I know people that, deal with a lot of anxiety over things. I don't have that. I've been jumping off of high things for a long time, and I like taking risks, and you don't do that by, overthinking, and so,
Right.
I don't do a lot of that. A lot of that is wiring. So, so, having good people behind me, hiring smarter than myself, which, wasn't hard to do, because I would hire people that knew how to do things that I did not know how to do. And along the way, I learned those, those things. And so, ultimately, some of it comes, down to wiring. And I would say, look, not everybody should grow a big company. Not everybody should expand across the United States. It depends on a lot of who you are. And I would say, most of what's wrong with, so if I'm talking to your audience, most of what's wrong with your company is what's wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're inside. One of my favorite movies is with Ben Stiller and in the Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and him having to deal with this dream of becoming a skateboarder, on the professional thing. At 13, his dad dies, and he ends up taking over. He ends up taking over a really boring job, leading the family, working at a pizza place. The whole story. And if you dissect that story, he had to overcome that. Well, one of his survival techniques was he lived in this dream world, but that wasn't getting him anywhere. So a lot of times what inhibits us is what's going on inside of us. The other movie I like to use as an analogy is What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Here's another guy that was dealt a set of circumstances. And so a lot of, my a lot of my talents and a lot of my gifting comes from the hardship that I grew up in my family. And so it taught me a lot of, not only survival skills, but also, ways of dealing with things in chaos. And so I grew up
resourcefulness.
I grew up in chaos. So, I went off and created chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yes, I can see that, and the listener can hear that clearly. What would you say to the person listening right now that feels like they're in chaos too, but it's just maybe a different level? And I kind of go back to your point here of maybe not everybody's designed to have a big company, because we're wired differently. And you've used this, pun intended or not. Obviously, you're the wiring guy, you're the power guy. But yeah, exactly. But I'm a huge fan here. We use Culture Index, Working Genius. Like there's certain ways that we're just designed, and we play into that, and you try to overcome either weakness and or play into the weakness and or strengths. There's a whole game plan on that. But
Right.
the person listening right now, who's listening to you, going, "Yeah, I feel like I'm in chaos right now." Is it for them to figure out and bring order? Is it for them to just press harder, hire somebody else, make a bigger chaos? Like, I mean, I know it's going to be dependent here, but I'm wanting your answer on maybe what it's dependent on.
I, to be honest with you, I think that, I've done all the Myers-Briggs and all the surveys, and we implement those things, and we interview people with all of that in mind, trying not to put people in a situation that they aren't, really going to succeed at, because we want people to succeed. So I think, what people have to do is step back and set their expectations. Things are not going to self-manage. They're just not. The leader of the organization is going to have to figure out who the best people are, and then, knight them in their role, let them make mistakes, deal with those mistakes. Don't let them make them twice. But, it's a constant influx of teaching and training and observing. We do a Monday meeting, management call. It takes 2 hours. We get an update on every single division in the company. Do I need that? Maybe not as much as it's a training tool for all the people that are coming up in the organization.
Oh,
and they get to see all the decisions, from the financial decisions to, the safety decisions. And, they're not caught off guard when we get sued for something and they go, "Oh, well, how did that happen?" They already knew what was happening.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a great tool that we use. So, and I don't know that there's a general question, like I would be more than happy to talk to somebody that, is listening to this, that says, "Hey, let me, unpack a situation," and maybe I could get them some specific, advice on that. Generalizations and comparisons are death.
It's good.
Just pure death. Just take a knife to your throat and slit it. If you're going to sit there and compare yourself to me or to anybody,
Yep.
I mean,
good.
Look, every once in a while when I need a humble, check on myself, I just think back to 1984, April. I started, basically in my garage. Well, there was another guy that started in his garage in 1984. His name is Bill Gates.
That's right.
I'm not even, my whole life's work isn't even a rounding error in comparison to him. It's not a rounding error. So you take that moment and you go, could I do more? Can I, figure this out? Yeah, but just realize that comparison's, really bad.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because there's freedom in that, and there's also, there's a charge also in that, because you said, like, yeah, could I do more? Yeah, like that. There's a recognition that there's still more for you,
right?
But specifically comparing yourself to him, or someone might be listening today going, I mean, dude's done hundreds of millions of dollars. How? Right. What are you talking about? But you're right. That's not even a rounding error for the other guy.
Yeah,
it's death. But how does one take that from what you just heard and say, okay, well, yeah, it's death. I shouldn't compare. I mean, how do I put the blinders on? How do I stay focused on what it is that I'm called to or that I'm good at?
Well, I like to, make a sports analogy. So we're all, our bodies are all different, so I like to run to stay in shape so I can, do all the things that I like to do. It's not my focus and I don't enjoy it. And somebody said, "Oh, you should go do a marathon." Okay. So, I go out, I attack, LA marathon, and I'm out there, and my goal is to do a 3.5, 3 hours and a half marathon. And I get to mile 22 Okay. Mile 22, and I am sub 3. I'm at 2 hours and 28 minutes. I mean, two
Wow.
hours and 58 minutes. And I'm almost to 3 hours. And, it takes me 42 minutes to finish the rest of the race.
Wow.
42 minutes. So it's like a
Yeah.
10-minute mile.
Yeah.
I broke. I go look at the stats because, comparison is like, where am I at? The guy that won the race, okay, at mile 22 of 26 miles, did a sub 5 mile.
Right.
It's like, I wasn't built for that. I'm pushing too much beef and gas.
Yeah.
and so we're just all different. And so
Yeah.
that's where the comparison thing, it's good to have a measurement, but not beat yourself up to be able to say, hey, this is, I can take this to the next level. I'm planning on, growing my company a lot bigger than it is,
Yeah.
but every once in a while, kind of look back and say, hey, we're doing good. It's not exactly what I thought it would be at this point. And, for me, there's always that impetus at that moment. It's like, that would be in a different place,
Right.
than where we are right now.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
there's lots of market factors and lots of things that you don't control.
Exactly. Well, especially over the course of decades, right? Like we're talking about,
Right.
okay, well, what's my 3-year goal? I mean, you told me before we hit the record button that you have 100-year legacy plan. It's like, well,
Right.
when you start making decisions in centuries,
Right.
the needle that we're moving is different.
Right. And just by virtue, the guy that inspired me to do that, he had 1,000-year plan.
Wow.
And I laughed. I said, I can't say that with a straight face. So 100 years,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah. And maybe it grows into a 1,000-year plan, because I've had that happen before too, where I've been around somebody who thinks so much bigger than me, and I just laugh. I just chuckle. I'm like, yeah, it would be fun to say that, but I don't currently believe it. So why would I say it? Because I don't believe it. But I can wrap my mind around, in this case, 100, or I can wrap my mind around okay, fine. Maybe it's you becoming a millionaire. Maybe it's you making sure that all of your kids don't have the same blah, 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 whatever that's, generational issue in your family. It's like, okay, we got to pick something, to your point, make it specific to what we're doing, what we're called to, what we're passionate about. One last thing here on this, like, growth and not comparison. For me, it seems like the answer, and I want to know if maybe you agree or if maybe you'd add something here, but it feels like the answer really is like this self-pursuit or this mastery of like, I'm just after it. I want to keep going. I'm not at my best version yet, because even though you didn't know before the race that you weren't, a marathon runner. You are a marathon runner because you finished, but you said, I'm not built for that. Okay, well, you recognize that maybe later, saying, I don't really know if I want to do this every quarter or every year for that matter.
Right.
But you didn't really know that until you did it. And so you pursued you pursued the best version of you. You did it, you tried it, and you're like, you know what? Check it, but no thanks. Or that could be for a lot of us, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, in order to stay away from comparison, but yet still be the best version of ourselves, is like there's this relentless pursuit towards becoming that. Would you agree? Would you add anything?
Yeah, I think of it, I think of it in terms of, kind of finding a balance. It's if you don't sleep, like I went through this cycle where everyone was talking about, I can work and accomplish all these things on, 4 hours of sleep. Right. Yeah, but you're going to die younger, but by doing that, you destroy your brain. We are made to rest, and we were made to pursue, and we were made to have a balance. I have a 168-hour week. People will say, well, what's that look like? Well, if we sleep 56, we work 50, because if you work less than 50, you're lazy, and if you work more, you're probably a little whack, and that's okay if you go above that. and exercise 10 hours a week, okay, you have 52 hours left in your week
Right.
to do it, to do whatever you want to do. So
Love that.
it's how do we push ourselves and also, take care of ourselves, because when we get to the, when we get, let's say you hit the success milestone, let's say you've burned out your wife and she doesn't, she wants to divorce you, or your kids hate you, or they don't know who you are, or whatever, and
Right.
your kid's 18 and you introduce yourself, hey, I'm your dad, um,
Right.
because you're out of balance. There's a balance, and every single person has to find that balance. Now, I still run for, for exercise, but I realize that I'm not going to be that, uh, that runner that wins marathons or does ultra marathons. I have to pick,
Right.
you know, what do I want to give myself,
Yeah.
to. So I don't know how else to say it except for, kind of do the internal exploration. As I said,
Yeah.
sometimes, we create chaos because inside of us is chaos, and we haven't resolved some things that where we can come to balance. And so the only thing we know how to do is like create chaos. Well, that's not good.
Yeah. 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 It's never going to lead to a winning result, with the exception of creating, I guess you just got to go and create sometimes. And sometimes that creates chaos, but you're talking about just
Right.
out of not
Oh,
knowing,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. When I go, away to a conference or something, everyone gets scared at work because they know I'm going to come back and go, "Hey, I just found out we're going to do this," and they go,
oh yeah. Well, that's
"No,
really encouraging to hear at your level, because that's what my team says about me, as well. There's two sides of the story too, right? Like there's this is part of your design. This is who you are to the company,
right,
but it also has to be not curbed. That's not the wrong word, but it has to be, prudently. You have to do it with like a design. Like you don't just show up every day with a new idea.
oh no,
It's got to
yeah,
be done with maturity.
right, yeah," and and if you did that, and well, I did that, at one point. We were into all kinds of things, and then what typically happens is some cycle, you know, a hurricane of financial disaster comes at you, and then you go, well, we really didn't need this and we didn't need that, and you start,
Yep.
getting rid of things and making things sane again.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Is there ever a point in time that you've experienced, or that you would maybe suggest that, you know, rather than waiting for that financial kind of hurricane, if you will, to do that for you, that you kind of have maybe a check and balances along the way of like, do we need this? Is this something that we can get rid of now, and kind of bringing things back to sane, as you just said,
Yeah.
before the chaos?
Yeah, and so I have this. People always say, of public companies or private companies, or they sort of make a decision point that it's the best thing, like thinking long term, thinking, short term thinking, midterm thinking. Well, each one of those things can be very good. There are short term thinking things that are really, really beneficial. You're nimble, you're fast. What you have to do,
Right.
what we like to do, is ask the question, well, what could go wrong, or what's the unintended consequence of this
Yeah.
decision we're making? Because
Yeah.
you can plot those things, you can kind of figure it out, and when you're, planning some, new venture or whatever, what could go wrong,
Yeah.
and we did that in Texas. We, you know, sent a team of guys out there, with our temp power, and what we were defeated by, some we didn't even see the utilities do all that work for them for free. How am I going to charge the
Right.
customer for something that, and we didn't see that coming. So
Right.
that was another, hey, we can figure this out in advance of us taking a step. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Okay. Let's talk about a bad decision that you've made. We've kind of, been in a really good place here. I feel in the conversation, give her some great value. Let me hear of a not great hour and how you navigated it.
Yeah. So, that is that has been, really, really weighing on me. Okay. So if you take the concept that we don't, and, everyone, this is kind of like a known quantity. We never fire people soon enough, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We hang on to people. And especially for me as a Christian, I think, well, I can save it. I can figure it out. I can,
Right. Yeah.
I can make this work. And
Yeah.
I did that with the COO in 2000s. It started, he kind of created a little bit of a coup uh, on me with a few people. And when I confronted the whole thing and broke it all up, he came to me and he said, hey, I'm sorry. I should have fired him right then. Had I done that, it would have been a really good decision. It was a really bad decision for me to try and hang on to him. And some of the he eventually did it again in 2007, and eventually he stole a laptop, took the hard drive out, took all of our information out, gave the laptop back with a new hard drive in it, a brand new one, and then went on to begin to try and compete with us. And so this individual, I could have saved myself that, that heartburn at that point had I seen that and, gotten rid of the person. Later on, he went on to dupe several investors into an investment deal where they lost 2.3 million. And later on after that, he went and duped a whole bunch of people, created a Ponzi scheme, and now is going to be under trial for mail fraud, wire fraud, a number of things. He's looking at 40 years in prison, and he duped his son-in-law into doing that. And I'm thinking to myself, had I done it then, what would have changed? Now, I don't take any responsibility for anything he did to other people. That's on them. But
yeah,
I saw the seeds of something bad in that guy. I did not fire him, and I wish I had fired him like that.
Yeah,
That
I think
it's a really bad decision.
Yeah, we can all relate to that. Maybe not the circumstances that turned out specifically like yours, but I think we can all relate to that. What do you think is that we hold on to? I mean, is it just because we have a belief in this person, or we want to see it better? Like because you said, I saw it, I know it wasn't like a shock, but you still kept him.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to go into what I talked about. What's wrong with your company is what's wrong with inside you. So at one point I was praying and asking God, I want to be a better leader. And I got this really clear answer, similar to, starting a business, not being a pastor. I got this really clear answer. Two things. One, drinking. I was drinking it was hurting my leadership. It was hurting, it was hurting things. I was drinking too much.
Yeah.
The second was my relationship with my mom. And I said, what's the deal? I forgive my mom. And I got this very clear word back. Your mom didn't love you. And I'm like, all moms love their kids. And I grew up in a really, bad family. My dad left when I was 5. My mom was, basically, a crazed sex person. She was like a Marilyn Monroe, James Manfield lookalike.
Wow.
And she just, went down this road. We were basically neglected. And so I got this. Well, remember a time in which your mom intervened, looked at you, loved you, and I couldn't think of one. And I can remember my whole childhood, every bit of it. I don't have like regressive memory. Oh, you can't remember. Um,
Right.
and I asked the question. So then, what did I do? You say, well, you pretended so you could
Mm.
survive,
Yeah.
and so you brought pretending into your leadership. And
Oh,
so I pretended that this guy was okay. I pretended that I wasn't seeing some of the things I was seeing. I
yeah.
pretended.
Wow.
What's eating Gilbert Grape? What's eating Steve Bray? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, those are really clear seeds of that, and that doesn't just go away. You have to
Right.
face it and deal with it. So a lot of times
Yeah.
people go, I'm just going to be busy and focus outwardly. But, I would say to your business leaders out there, what's in you that's holding you back?
Yeah.
Whether it's your childhood, whether it's, entitlement, whatever it is, um, you know, interesting stuff.
Powerful. Yeah. More, yeah. Interesting is the cap, the very, very top nugget of it. There's a whole lot more in there. Um, I think we could probably have a whole nother show if I kept my curiosity up on that. So I'm gonna I'm gonna curb that for a secret conversation that I'll have with you later. Maybe we'll be able to share that. But the the question I got asked about you, or I want to ask now, is about family. You've mentioned your family and kids and
Yeah.
legacy and even just your wife and
Hmm.
like upset we talked about balance and I hear your definition of balance and I think that that's right. The word balance rubs me the wrong way just because I want to go all in, right? Like that's just who we are, right? We're not balanced individuals, we're obsessive.
Right.
But I get what you're saying you got to have it all, like 52
Yeah.
hours here, 50 hours here, like organize it. So my question to you is, how have you obsessed or balanced your marriage, your kids, legacy
Yeah.
mindedness, as well as
Right.
running a huge company and building it?
Right. Well, and there's going to be some holdbacks. So uh, starting and running a business is harder when you have convictions, when you have morals, when you have integrity. Those are hard things. And when I was 27, I realized I was working around these people that were like working 100-hour weeks, and I projected that out, and I said, well, that I'm going to get to this place where I'm really successful, sitting there smoking my cigar, and my kids hate me, and I'm on my third trophy wife.
Right.
And I said, I don't want to do that. So I made a decision. I was going to work till 6 o'clock at night, not work the weekends. I was going to, you know, date my wife, play with my kids. And so, I have one wife, 4 kids, and a dog named Skipper. And, that's
And a white picket fence.
so, and look, my wife and I have, you know, I, once somebody asked me one time, well, how have you, stayed married for, almost 42 years? It's like, well, when we hated each other, we just didn't do anything about
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Because there,
that's the truth.
yeah, there's periods when, I know my wife has just hated me. And, there's times when I'm like, whatever, and,
Yeah.
done the dismissive thing with her.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
the balance is somewhat of it's a decision you have to make. It's not
Right.
just going to come at you. So you look at even the hours that I told you, you have to make a decision every week about exercise, about work, about sleep, about, you know,
Yeah.
you're pursuing adventure,
Yeah.
the battles that you're in, all of it.
Yeah.
You have to. Those are decision points. They're not just going to fall out of the sky. They're deliberate, and it's harder when you have ethics, when you have a real conviction, to live a certain way. And so for the most part, my kids still like me, and my wife, my wife, my wife was, we were talking about, having this conversation today, and she goes, just be yourself, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, that's how you've been with her, right?
yeah,
Which is a little bit scary actually, because I think high driving entrepreneurs, at least for me, like, I mean, some of my like worst moments, the worst I've been to people has been to my wife, unfortunately. And you're like, well, wait a second, she's the one I love the most, but I've treated the most kindly, or they're the most poorly at
right,
times.
right.
But to her point there, we hopefully got to see the real you today, but she's for sure seen the real you. You've seen the real
Yeah,
her.
yeah,
And the decision that you're talking about is to work through the real version, not the
right.
version that we saw each other, for my wife and I at 18 and 17. And there's just been a lot of growth and change between, 18 and 36 for me, and
Right,
17 and 35 for her. It's like, wow.
right.
The decision really is important for sure, but because we're both growing and changing, and she's really seen the real me and I've seen the real her. And that's the beauty
Did
of
you
what
get
actually what
married
love is.
at 18 and 17?
We met then, married at 21 and 20. Yeah. So it's been a minute. All right, Steve, I got one last question here for you. And honestly, I've asked this question a lot, but I might be the most excited about your answer. I want to know, if you had the opportunity to whisper in the younger Steve's ear, what would you tell him?
Don't do it. No, no. What would I tell him?
Yeah.
I would say, it's funny because I didn't have the type of growing up, encouragement from parents and things like that. My mom didn't know anything about me. My dad certainly did because he left. Um, but what I would say is that there are good people out there that
Mm,
are rooting for you on the sidelines. You can't see them because you're focused and you're blurred, but
yeah.
they love you. And I didn't have that, when I started. I was sort of just like, I grew up as a kid that survived. So all those survival skills were really, on one hand, what made me wired the way I was wired.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
and so I'm very thankful for those. I never had this moment where, God, why did you do X, Y, Z? No,
Yeah.
I realized, wow, you know, I get to do what I'm doing because of that, those experiences. And so, to be honest with you, if you knew my background, I don't ever look at a homeless person and say, how did they end up there? I say, how did I not end up yelling and screaming at the world, on the sidelines? Because I should be probably dead,
Yeah.
by now.
Wow.
I attribute that to the redemptive story of Jesus in my life, and then that calling, and then just kind of utilizing those skills. And so I would tell that younger me, you got this. Even though you feel like you're a bit alone in it, you got this, and you can.
Yeah. Love every part of that answer. And in fact, this will have to be for that secret next conversation that you and I are going to have. But I've said the same things, some of those same things to myself around,
Yeah.
like, I've never had that moment where I was like, oh, I didn't have a dad, or, single mom family, whatever the scenario is. I've always
Right.
counted it as a blessing and part of my story, and
Right.
a reason for whatever that God has for me. And so I
Yeah.
appreciate that perspective. It's wholesome. It's right. For the ones that are listening right now that, aren't or can't, or maybe don't know how to get to that place of just really just being okay with the good and the bad and the ugly, and allowing it to be fuel, really.
Mm.
I would encourage you to do that. For
Yes.
Steve and I, it's obviously, like I said, it's faith based, and being redeemed when you're not worth anything to begin with. When you need a
Mm.
rescuer, it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter how great or how bad the circumstances are. You need a rescuer. So
Right.
I think that's a great place. I'm just thankful to be in arms with you on that. But Steve, how can the listener find you? Number one, if they, I don't know, maybe they're listening and they run a big old hospital and they need their copy machine, not their actual copy machine, but they need help. Or if they're just a business owner and they're looking to connect with an incredible mature king or sage, how can they find you?
So they can reach me on my email, srbray@powerplus.com. That's the best way to do it. Reach out, reference, this podcast, Chaz Wolfe, and, I'll respond to it. I have a really quick finger, ding, ding, ding,
Delete.
delete. I have no social media whatsoever. I'm one of two humans that never opened a Facebook page. And I really don't want to spend my time, trying to get likes and followers. I had an Instagram for probably 2 years. I had 14 followers, and it was too much for me to manage.
Yeah, a lot going on there. Yeah.
so it's simple. I will respond. I enjoy, answering questions, bantering back and forth. And, when we do that, we'll set up a call or something if somebody wants to reach out.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. Even the simplicity of it, I appreciate your willingness to help as well. Steve, you have been sensational here today. Thank you for telling us just even pieces of your story. I personally am going to press in and get to know the full story, but thank you for your time. Thank you for just the endurance of decades of work and persistence and pursuit of your wife and all of the things we've talked about here today. We wish you nothing but blessing in all of those things as you continue. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chaz.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.